So this is now part two of my response to McClellan 1571 about whether or not Adam and Eve were doomed to die or would surely die in the Bible in Genesis chapter 2 and 3.
All right, let's see it.
For that to happen, the context has to provide some kind of explicit time frame, which it does in this case because it says, on the day you eat from it. Then it gives the paronomastic infinitive. So the text explicitly provides a time frame.
And I would argue that it is the dooming to death or the certainty of that death that is effectualized on that day, not the actual death itself.
So I'm only responding to this part of this video because the entire argument stands or falls on this claim. And I suspected that this was the claim being made when I responded to the previous video, but I decided to give the creator the benefit of the doubt. But now I see that this claim is explicit, so I'm going to respond to it. And the claim is this. The claim is that the paronomastic infinitive, bound by this temporal clause of on the day that you eat of it, so something's going to happen on the day you eat of it. And the argument here is that it's not the death that will occur, but the rhetorical force of the paronomastic infinitive, so the certainty or the dooming to die. In other words, on the day you eat of it, you will begin a process that will lead to your imminent death, but the death itself won't occur. So it's either one of these two things. Either you will start the process of starting to die, or you will be certain that you will die. So one of those two things occurs on that day. Now, there are two big problems with that. The first is that the notion that you can divide up the paronomastic infinitive into two different semantic units and treat only one of them as bound to the temporal clause that is governing the entire paronomastic infinitive is absolutely laughable. That's not how this language works. It's pure and utter nonsense. The other problem is there's already a way to say precisely what this creator is suggesting Genesis 2:17 says. And that's in 1 Kings 2, where the king tells Shimei, on the day you cross that river, you will know for a certain that you will die. You have to include an entire additional clause to say that, though. That includes the paronomastic infinitive with the verbal root yada, know. You will certainly know that you will die, with you will die operating as a subordinate clause. So what this creator is saying Genesis 2:17 is communicated, can be communicated in Hebrew, but it requires an additional governing clause, and mot tamut has to be subordinated to it via this particle ki. So you can't say that with the Hebrew of Genesis 2:17, and you cannot divide up the semantic units of the rhetorical force of the paronomastic infinitive and treat only one as governed by the temporal clause and the other as independent of the temporal clause. That's just not how Hebrew works, and this creator clearly does not have a strong grasp of the Hebrew language.